Some surprising news out in Green Bay, Wisconsin. As you heard, the judge in the trial you're watching here on Court TV all day long broke his ankle 3 places, has to have surgery, and our thoughts with him and good luck with the surgery. But the bottom line, he won't be able to continue in the case. Let's take a look. The trial will now resume on Monday, February 22nd. The judge there in court misspoke, saying the 23rd. The 22nd is Monday, but they're going to get back to business resuming the actual case, which is good news. We also have the new judge will be Judge William Atkinson, will replace Judge Hinkfuss. And again, our thoughts out to Judge Hinkfuss. Good luck with the surgery and a speedy recovery to you. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter. This is a bit of surprise, but maybe not in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm sure there's ice on the ground everywhere, so you can slip and fall. And again, our best to the judge. Tell us about the new judge that we're getting, Judge William Atkinson. What do we know about him?
Well, he's a reserve judge for Brown County court system. He actually retired in 2019 after serving 28 years, a 5-term circuit judge, one of the longest here in Brown County to serve. And he's a reserve, so now he's going to return to the bench. He retired to go be a grandfather, and now he's going to return and take over this case on Monday. There was an interesting fact. I thought this was interesting, that he had the same court reporter all 28 years he was a judge. That's sort of unprecedented. You don't see that a lot, but he will be taking over and replacing Judge Hinkfuss, who broke his ankle in 3 different places. He's having surgery tomorrow, Vinnie, and of course we definitely wish him the best. But his brother was in court this morning when all of this happened, Judge Hinkfuss, and his brother's an attorney in Milwaukee, but he was in court this morning to watch the trial start and begin. But we did learn from him that the judge is doing okay, all things considered, and is just trying to keep his court cases and docket in order while he is healing, hopefully healing well.
Absolutely. So any reaction from either side, prosecution or defense, or the defendant today?
Definitely some reaction from the family of Victoria Prokopovitz. They've been present, you know, her children have been testifying in her case in chief. They were visibly disappointed when they left after the announcement this morning. As you can imagine, they've waited almost 8 years for this day, for this trial, for justice for their mother. And they wouldn't comment to us, but it was heard that one said it was sort of unbelievable that this was happening. Another delay in the case. The prosecution was there with them, informing them of everything that was happening, what it would mean moving forward. They wouldn't comment to us, but we did get a tidbit that their case in chief may be wrapping up, or they did plan to wrap up by Wednesday of next week before this delay. But on the other side of the courtroom, the family of the defendant, James Prokopovitz, who has been there all week, there were a little bit more of a presence behind him today in the courtroom. His nieces and nephews there and their family to support him. It was going to be a really big day inside the court with the lead detective resuming his testimony today, and they said that they will return on Monday. Again, it's set for 11 a.m. Eastern as of right now to return to testimony.
Okay, let's get to some of the substance of what's been testified to and some of the issues in the case. And as we all know, this is a no-body case. Victoria's body has not been recovered. We don't know where she is, but it seems through some of the evidence that prosecutors have a theory here. Let's take a listen to Richard Jones' testimony, who's an engineer at Georgia Pacific.
At the time, you've referred to the fact that out at the landfill was this padlock. You indicated there were keys to open it. Is that right?
Yes.
And who would have access to those keys then?
The McKeefrey personnel, but typically it would be the landfill operator that would be have ownership of that key.
And if Curley had told law enforcement he had access to the keys, that would make sense?
Yes.
Now, you indicated there were no cameras out at the landfill. There was no formal check-in system. There wasn't really a security system out there either at that time, was there?
That's correct.
All right, Chanley, so it seems that they're kind of saying, listen, you know, he's got access to this landfill. Can you describe this place to us?
Yes, Vinny, I learned more about sludge ponds than I ever thought I would in my life yesterday during several witnesses and co-workers at McKeefre's and the Georgia Pacific Company. And this landfill is where they store the waste disposal from Georgia Pacific. McKeefre's is kind of the subcontractor who helped transport the waste product from Georgia Pacific to this landfill, which is almost 300 acres. And there are 17 cells or ponds, sludge ponds. And I learned that sludge is a waste product of paper, and they transport that, and this is how they can store it in this landfill. Also, we're learning that these sludge ponds can be quite precarious. The testimony of Jones yesterday was that it's almost like the texture of quicksand at times. It takes many years to fill up one of these sludge ponds. And another witness, a co-worker of the defendant at the time, testified about how possibly if something is put into the sludge pond, he was asked whether or not you could see it or if it would sink, and he said actually it depends on what it is that's in there, but he remembered a big heavy equipment in there, and it didn't sink down into the sludge pond. And so we learned a lot of details about what may be in there, and it sounds a little scary to me, if you ask me.
Absolutely, but I could see how people would say, well, yeah, that's one place that he might think of. There's no security cameras. He's got the key to the padlock. He could go there in the wee hours of the morning, whatever. Is there any evidence to kind of link, when he had an opportunity to do this, to him actually being there, or any evidence of anything being dumped in this landfill sludge pond?
There's no direct evidence. It's pretty much, there's this window in the timeline with the prosecution where Jim Prokopovitz is alone with his wife at home because his son Wesley, or stepson Wesley, goes to a friend's house, doesn't return till 4 a.m. So that those several hours. And the testimony, though, both on direct and was brought out on cross from those who worked there and are familiar with the landfill, it's access. He would have access. The defendant would have a key through McKeefre, and where he worked to do that, there's no security cameras and could get in, but it would be at nighttime. And on cross-examination, it was learned through Jones that it would be very difficult to find your way. There's no lights out there. You could come upon a sludge pond before you even knew it, and it would be difficult to navigate at nighttime. Plus, the time of year this was in April. We're in Wisconsin, northeast Wisconsin, and it's still pretty cold that time of year. And during the wintertime, these ponds freeze up, and you wouldn't be able to put anything really in them. And in April, it may still be of a texture where something couldn't actually be placed and hidden in one of these sludge ponds. So while there's no direct evidence, it's hopefully hinted, according to the prosecution, to the jurors that this is an opportunity or a means of which he may have had to dispose of his wife's body.
Yeah, I mean, it's a possibility. I would be much more comfortable as a prosecutor if I had some indication that his car left at a certain time or something, but it doesn't seem like that's necessarily going. Did he say anything about where he was during that time period? I mean, is there anything where you can catch him maybe in a lie about where he was, or is it just difficult because there's no one else there?
It is difficult because no one else is there. His story is that he fell asleep on the recliner the night before, woke up, and couldn't find his wife if his wife wasn't home. Now, his story about what time he may have, woken up is a little in question. There's some testimony that he gave in previous hearings about he went to look for her at a certain location. Well, the police follows up on that, and they look at a surveillance video from a gas station, and they don't see her car or his car or any car in that family pass by there. So they sort of cross-examine him on that at the hearing, and he has no answer for that. So his timeline is a little up in the air exactly for that, but I'm sure that will all come out with this lead detective who took the stand yesterday and now is on pause to testify.
Her car wasn't missing, though, was it? I mean, her car was home.
But they exhaust all of those leads, right? They're going to look for anyone's car. I'm sure they even look for Wesley Edge's car to see if he was in the area looking for her, to follow up on what may have happened and if his story checked out, where he was, what he was doing. And they didn't find any evidence of that, which really put his timeline as far as where he was looking for his wife that morning into question.
Okay, now put it all together for us, what we have coming up. When are we back in court? And what's sort of the timing of everything? Because everything's been kind of delayed a little bit here.
Right. With the delay, the jury will actually return Monday morning to resume testimony with the new judge, like we said. But tomorrow, they're actually going to put on the record the transfer between the judges. So formally, the attorneys will come before the court, and the case will be handed over formally. And that's at 2:30 Eastern tomorrow afternoon in the courthouse behind me.
All right, and that's not unprecedented. We've covered other cases here on Court TV where there's been a change of a judge. The judge will do his homework, will get up to speed on the case. You know what he can do? He can download the Court TV app and watch the whole thing, right? Another great reason to have cameras inside the courtroom, Chanley, right? All right, Chanley Painter in Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vinnie.